to the Tojo Fitness Podcast this beautiful Thursday morning.
Yeah, we're coming to you to educate on how to design the optimal fitness program. So the last couple of weeks we've been looking at nutrition, looking about the 3 macros. Today we are looking about how to get that optimum fitness program.
We all know that health is optimized by exercise. Let me give you a few statistics. I love statistics. Getting active and losing 10 kilograms, which, to be honest, most people could do with losing 10 kilograms. But if you combine those things together, some amazing things will happen. You get a greater than 20% reduction of your chance of early death.
Yeah.
Imagine every year you're rolling a dice and you have a certain percentage chance of dying, and you could reduce that by 20%. That's a pretty big payoff, isn't it?
It is, although we don't roll the dice, thankfully, on our own lives. But it does help. Next one is a greater than 30% reduction in diabetes-related deaths. We're talking about diabetes type 2, ones which actually you can control by diet and fitness. Greater than 30% reduction.
And that's not just diabetes, that's all the metabolic illnesses which come alongside with insulin resistance and so on. Here's a great one. A greater than 40% reduction in obesity-related cancers. Or not just obesity, because you may say, well, I'm not obese. But a vast amount of cancer is produced or made worse or exacerbated by excess body fat. Yeah. And so by reducing your body fat just by 10 kilograms, you change your statistics again here by 40%, which
huge.
is massive.
It is. Next one, which I really, really love, is that there's a greater than 10-point reduction on your systolic reading on your blood pressure and a greater than 20-point reduction in your diastolic reading on your blood pressure. So we all know, well, if you don't know, that if you're coming up to a blood pressure reading of roughly 140 over 90, you are heading into the danger zone on blood pressure. Now, if you were to get active, reduce down your body fat, you're going to find naturally that your blood pressure, unless you've got something genetic going wrong, you're going to find your blood pressure is going to start naturally reducing.
Yeah, and actually, even if there is something genetic, you'll still see this reduction.
You'll still see the results.
And many of our clients, one of the incredible things is when you start working out with them is how they need less and less medication for controlling hypertension and blood pressure. And eventually they come off it altogether. It's totally like diabetes. Type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure are normally controllable simply by lifestyle choices.
Absolutely.
Here's a great one. 50% connected with that. 50% reduction in fasting glucose. Now that's the amount of glucose that's in your blood when you've been fasting. And there really shouldn't be very much in your blood. Insulin should take care of that and put it away nice and safe. If it doesn't, then that glucose is going to run riot in your body and create all sorts of metabolic disorders and problems. And you can reduce that by 50% just through losing 10 kilograms and getting active.
It's amazing. So the next statistic, 10% reduction in total cholesterol.
Yeah, big stuff. If you're on drugs for cholesterol, you know that these are the factors they're looking at. And an 8% increase in HDL cholesterol. If you've been listening to our podcast, you know that cholesterol, there's good cholesterol and there's bad cholesterol. A little bit more complicated than that, but let's say the good cholesterol and bad cholesterol.
The good and the bad.
We're going to reduce the bad cholesterol and we're going to increase the good cholesterol. Yeah. And connected with that, if you suffer from these issues, you'll find a 30% reduction in blood triglycerides. So there's a whole bunch of science to bore you with this morning. But actually, I hope it's excited you.
It has. But also, when you look behind the scenes on this, of getting active and losing weight, you're also going to be increasing your mental health state as well. So there's other things that are also tied up with this. So things like depression, anxiety, seasonal anxiety disorder. So we're coming into the winter now. Some of you I know that are probably going to be dreading winter time because you're like, this is the time I find I'm blue, I find I eat more, I don't like the dark nights. Let me encourage you, get active. Find something you like. and get active, because I can guarantee you that will mop up all the sadness and start injecting some joy into your brain chemistry.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, of course, is that it starts sorting out your hormone levels.
Yes.
The big 4 happiness hormones, which we're going to do a podcast about the happiness hormones.
Yeah, we will, yeah.
Serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins and dopamine all spike through exercise. So we want to be putting you through good health, good nutrition and a good exercise program into a state of optimal health.
Yes, and an FYI for those who are going through the menopause or have been through the menopause, this will also help your condition.
So let's talk about what should a good all-round program look like. We're going to go into a lot of this stuff in depth later on. But right now, in order to achieve optimal health, okay, this is somebody who's not trying to specialise. Let's say I came to you and I said, okay, I don't want to be a specialist. I'm not trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm not trying to be Usain Bolt. I'm not trying to be a top gymnast or anything. I just want a good all-round
get fit
level of fitness.
Yeah.
What are the things which I need to incorporate? What are elements that make up good fitness?
So I would say the 3 elements that make that up are, first of all, strength. So strength training. Why strength training? Well, it builds the strength in your muscle and your bones. For example, especially if you're susceptible to osteoporosis.
Which is all women over in the menopause.
Yeah, if you're coming up to the menopause, this is a risk, unfortunately, that starts to get increased. And so what you'll find is people say, oh, no, I'm at risk from this, so I don't want to lift heavy. I don't want to lift. In the opposite direction, my friend. The fact of loading onto the bones will actually stimulate new bone growth. Now, what it might do is actually just give that bone just a little bit more life. It may not stop it completely, but it will aid its cause. So strength for the bones and the muscles is huge.
And calcium leaches from the bones as you get older.
Yes, it does.
And without calcium, your body and also your bones find it difficult to actually uptake that calcium.
Yeah.
And without that, your bones get brittle.
They do.
But as Joe said, when you load the bones, so it's important, the strength exercises, putting a lot of weight across your back and squatting down and getting up again might seem like a crazy thing to do if the doctors told you that you're likely to have osteoporosis. But actually, by doing that, it stimulates
the blasts and the clasts.
Yes, osteoblasts, which are the part of the bone which grows new bone.
New bone.
And it tends to stop the osteoclasts, which are the part of the bone that tears it down.
Yeah.
So as you get older, there's the work of osteoclasts gets more and more, and the work of osteoblasts gets less. And so you're tearing down bone structure, but you're not building it up again. But strong strength training, heavy loading, reverses that.
And it also, we're talking about bones, but now we're going to talk about muscles, is that obviously the older you get, the more muscle wastage you have. So a lot of the girls that I train will say, will this sort out my bingo wings?
Yeah.
Yes, it will sort out your bingo wings, but coupled with the 10 kilograms that we're going to lose, plus the strength training, you'll find that will actually combat muscle wastage.
So the statistics are sometimes a little bit different, but most of the statistics seem to point to the fact that somewhere in your 30s, if you're a man, you start losing about 1% of your muscle mass every year, and that accelerates as you get older.
Scary.
Now, without muscle mass, you might think, well, I don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger when I'm 80 years old. But you're missing the point.
But you don't look saggy.
Yeah, you don't look saggy. But it's more than that. The reason why most people fall over is because they don't have the muscles to react, to hold them together. It's like a bunch of bones. If you get a bunch of bones, like you see, in the osteopath's office, and there's no muscle on those bones, they just all rattle around. And if you were to just snip the top, the bit of string holding that skeleton, the bones would all collapse on the floor. So by building strong muscles around the bones, we enable that joint to last longer. The bones stay together. We're less likely to have falls as we get older.
Yeah.
So things like strength training, we look and we say, oh yeah, it's okay for the kids. No, it's even more important.
It's more important, yeah.
When you get older, and you're not going to give yourself a heart attack by lifting something heavy.
No, that's true. Next element to put in is, I know I'm going to hear some, cardio.
Everyone loves the cardio.
Cardio is such an important element for getting fit because it will work that heart and lungs. Now, I know a lot of people will often say, look, if I try and go for a run or I try and introduce some cardio into my regime, I can't breathe. Or I've got very limited lung capacity. The thing is that the more you do it, the more that you'll increase that lung capacity.
That's good.
So during the day, we'll often shallow breathe. Basically, we only use probably a quarter of our lungs, to be honest. As you're coming into cardio, or what's called your VO2 max for those out there, the more you do it, the more it increases the capacity of your lungs. Now, it's not probably going to be, running through the woods and a bear's chasing after you. This is just steady state cardio.
Yeah, it helps you in two ways. It actually increases the volume of your lungs, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
But it also increases the efficiency of your lungs.
And get that heart beating.
Like an old engine, both your lungs and your heart, as you get older, they're just not as efficient as they used to be. So if you're using a quarter of your lungs, and now as you're aging, you're only using it at 50% capacity or 50% efficiency, that's a problem. Now, with exercise, cardio exercise, not only do you increase that 50% perhaps to 60 or 70%, but you increase the volume of lungs that you're actually using. So you could end up with a greater capacity than you had in your 20s. It's very, very simple to do. And same works with the heart. The action of the heart to push the blood around the body without strenuous exercise, and it gets that through cardio activity, it loses that ability to push the blood around the body.
That's right. And also, it will adjust your resting heart rate. Now, if you've got a resting heart rate and you're in the 80s or the 75s and the 80s, increasing your cardio will bring that resting heart rate down, which is going to be really, really important.
One of our clients just contacted us and this was somebody who was on high blood pressure pills and they had a high resting heart rate. And what did he say his resting heart rate was? I think his heart rate
is about 56, 54 or something.
Which is just incredible.
Which is great. Yeah, really great.
Wonderful.
So our third element that we're going to put into the program is mobility. So that's to do with our balance, that's our core, and that's flexibility.
Sure.
So as we get older, you'll probably find that it's going to be harder to get up from the sofa. Once you get down on the floor, you just can't get back up again, etc., etc. So what this does, having mobility, this includes stretching, so maintenance stretching. This includes things like functional fitness. And what functional fitness does, it copies what you do on an everyday basis. So your everyday daily activity. So for example, I'll train quite a few clients and we'll do something called walkouts. And walkouts is where you come down onto the hands, you lay the body flat on the floor, and then you push back up into a standing position. And I do this purely because I say, look, if you have a fall later in life, your body will remember the walkout.
Sure.
It will remember and to help you get back up again because you have built in this neuro pathway where your body is able to push you back up to a standing position again.
That's really, really important. And it's partly connected with balance and flexibility. The reason they put them together is because when we think about flexibility, we generally think about yoga.
Or putting your foot behind your head.
Yeah. And some of these things are really, really good. To the static ability to touch your toes, for instance.
Yeah.
You should be able to do that until the day you reach 100. The ability to touch your hands behind your back. The ability to get down and get up, to bend over to tie your shoelaces and these things. Basic flexibility drills. It can be drilled into us. And if we don't use it, we lose it. Now, years ago, it was only very, very old people who would lose that flexibility. But now, because of sedentary lifestyle...
Yeah, there's a lot of youngsters.
And we often are training people, and we'll say to somebody in their 20s, right, we're going to just bend over, touch your toe, and they can't do that.
Yeah.
They can't get the basic flexibility.
Yeah.
And without that, you set yourself up much more likely for falls, because balance is connected with flexibility and with muscle strength. So the way you know where your body is in the universe is through the work of these things called proprioceptors, which are in the muscle tissues, and they feed back constantly where your hands are, where your feet are, where your head is. So you always know, your central nervous system always knows exactly where every part of your body is. It keeps like an inventory. I know my hand is behind me now. Now, if you don't work out, if you don't exercise, as you get older, those proprioceptors stop functioning, and some of them die.
Get a bit clogged.
And so you just don't know quite, or they don't respond quite so fast as to where you actually are. So you're much more likely to fall over. You start toppling, but you don't realise you're toppling until you're too far over one side or too far over the other side. You're past the point of no return. And if you think about how you fall, when people fall, either later in life or even now, it's rare that people fall straight on their face or straight on their back. People normally fall to the side or at a 45-degree angle. And the reason is because your muscles are strong in the front and back plane, but in the sideways planes, they're not so strong. So particularly as we get older, maintaining mobility is about not just strengthening our muscles forward and backwards, but being able to sidestep, being able to do wide squats, being able to do work on a stability ball, for instance. And a lot of the things you see people doing in gyms these days, where they're not on the machines, they're not lifting heavy weights, they're working with smaller weights on stability balls. It helps train these proprioceptors. It's a wonderful thing so that you get an optimized health as you get older. Now, we want to talk, as we promised you, about how do you build this program? What sort of program is going to give you that?
So we're going to start off, first of all, looking at beginners, basically. If you've never ever even entered into a kind of fitness program, here is what we would recommend to you: the rule of 2.
Easy.
So, first of all, that's aerobic training twice a week. What do we mean by aerobic training?
It's something that's going to make you out of breath.
There we go. So we're talking about cardio.
Yeah, here comes the cardio.
Really. So twice a week for 20 minutes. First of all, aerobic training twice a week for 20 minutes. Second of all...
Can we just talk about intensity there?
Yeah, sure.
So we're talking about people who are beginners or people who are deconditioned. Mm-hmm. Now, if you've got medical conditions and stuff, don't do this. Wait, talk to an exercise professional. But if you're just a beginner or you're deconditioned, the intensity level you're looking at when you start off is to be able to converse. So if you're on a treadmill and there's somebody on a treadmill next to you, you're able to have a basic conversation.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to analyse Shakespeare. You would run out of breath. But you can sort of say, hey, so how was your day out yesterday? Yeah, mine was okay. That sort of stuff is great. That's the sort of intensity you're looking for 2 times a week for 20 minutes. And that will start strengthening your lungs and your heart and building up that resilience.
Yes. Secondly, we would recommend resistance training twice a week. Resistance training is muscle strength and endurance. Muscle strength and endurance twice a week for 20 minutes. Now, we would recommend that you try and get as many muscle groups involved in that time as much as you can.
Yeah, so obviously if you're doing bicep curls, that's exercising one muscle group. So if you've only got 20 minutes and you're only doing it 2 times a week, you want to exercise as many as you can. So if you're doing squats, you're exercising your quads, you're exercising your hamstrings, you're exercising your glutes, you're exercising your back a little bit as well. If you're doing a bench press, you're exercising your chest, you're exercising your shoulders, you're exercising your triceps.
Yeah.
So these multi-joint exercises are excellent choices. Deadlifts are exercising the entire
body compound
body.
Movements. Yeah.
So by doing this just for 20 minutes, 2 times a week, and the intensity we're looking for here is a warm-up set, and then 2 sets for 8 to 12 reps, 8 to 12 repetitions for each group.
Yeah.
You want to stop when you could do 1 or 2 more. So for a beginner, somebody who's deconditioned, set the weight so you can do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 reps, and you rack the thing when you've still got 2 in the can. You could do another 2, but you don't do them. We'll save that.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of level of intensity. So see, we're training these 3 areas we talked about, the aerobic and the strength and muscles, and now we're going to talk about the mobility.
So mobility, we would recommend twice a week, again for 20 minutes. Now, when you first start out in mobility, and I'm talking about stretching, I'm talking about core work, your body will have a little bit of a grumble. So when it's first stretched, I remember when I first started out stretching, so I had, after cancer, I was in bed for about 8 months through cancer, got back up again, and I could not move an inch. So I got back into stretching, and the day after I'd stretched, it was as though I'd worked out, because my body wasn't used to that kind of movement. So twice a week I started back on for 20 minutes. Now, if you want some advice on what stretches to do, all on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Tojo Fitness, there are many different Flexi Fridays which are available for each body part. There's even one for an entire body stretch, and they're about 20 minutes long. They'll do you good. They're a good foundation to start incorporating twice a week, as I say, for 20 minutes.
Yeah, we're not looking at tying ourselves in knots at this point.
Not a pretzel.
But you can see those 3, that will take you an hour. An hour at the gym is pretty good for a beginner, somebody who's deconditioned. Take it easy, gradually work up. You're not looking at trying to pass out. You're not looking at trying to be a strong man at this point. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to learn the processes of pushing weights and moving things around, and your body's going to start adapting. Your heart and lungs are going to start getting stronger and with better capacity. Your resistance, your muscles are going to start getting stronger, and your ability to recruit more muscle fibers into those exercises is going to grow.
That's right.
And you're going to find an increased mobility. Just take that stretch to where you can feel it. There's no goals in stretching. It's always about the direction you're heading in. To where you can feel it, holding those stretches 30 seconds up to a minute. Breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we're going to progress from a beginner now to intermediate training. Now, all this, if you're new to listening to these podcasts, or you're new to the fitness world, for example, we are available to give online programming. So that is something at Tojo Fitness that we specialise in, especially for beginners to intermediate and even advanced training. Everything we can actually program for you. So please don't panic.
Yeah, you might not be able to get here for us to train you face to face, but we can program you wherever
all over the world,
wherever you are in the world, and even if you're on the moon, as long as you have an internet connection.
Yes, absolutely. So next, intermediate training. So we've gone from the rule of 2 for being a beginner. We're now leveling up to a rule of 3 for intermediate training, and that starts with aerobic training, which is now 3 times a week for 30 minutes. 3 times a week for 30 minutes. Now, one thing I would say on aerobic training is pick something you enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't like running, then get on the cross trainer at the gym or row. But there are plenty, or even a bike. There are plenty of options for getting that aerobic training in.
You don't have to do the same thing. You don't have to do the same thing every week.
Mix it up.
Or you could do 10 minutes on the cross trainer, 10 minutes on the stepping machine, 10 minutes on the bike. So you can mess around with it, put a podcast on, put this podcast on and listen to us. Perfect. It's a 30, that's why we make these things 30 minutes. It's the rule of 3. What intensity level should I be at, Joe, if I'm an intermediate trainer?
So really, you should be able to speak, but not actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
So the odd word, not a problem. But you probably won't be able to have like a full in-depth, this is what I had for dinner conversation.
Yeah, you're sort of going to be gasping out 2 or 3 words, really.
Yeah, the main concentration is that you breathe.
So we're working this lungs, going on from the beginner program onto the intermediate program and the next level. So resistance training, that's the rule of 3. So if it's the rule of 3, it's 3 times a week for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
We're essentially doing the same thing as we were doing when we were beginning, except we're upping the intensity level now.
Yeah.
We're doing it for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But the intensity level is going up now to 1 warm-up set, and then 3 sets, not 2 sets, 3 sets now, because it's the rule of 3, for 8 to 15 repetitions for each muscle group. And the difference here is that before we were stopping when you still had 2 in the tank. Now we're going to failure.
Yeah.
That is that the last one that you push out is the last one that you could properly do.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about doing one with crazy form and, by wiggling your bum and
then it's going to fall on you or whatever you're doing.
You want to go so that the last rep you do is the last rep you can do at that weight with good form and safely.
Yeah.
So that's strengthening your heart and lungs. It's strengthening your muscles. But what do we do about mobility?
So mobility now is going to be 3 times a week for 30 minutes. Again, that is a lot of stretching. That's core work too. So that's activating the local and the global muscle systems, which are within the trunk section of the body. Again, YouTube channel, we've put it all out there for you. So you're able to actually follow that along. With regards to stretching, we recommend active and static stretching.
Yeah, so active stretching is when you're doing things like, let's say you're doing a sideways squat, that's an active stretch. You're going in motion into a position
dynamic mobility.
Yes, dynamic mobility.
Yeah.
Static stretching is where you just hold a position.
Yeah.
So you might touch the ground, touch your toes, and you're going to hold it for a minute, just breathing in and out. Now, the reason we stop and hold is because the first few seconds of any stretch is not going to be your maximum. You just stop and hold it, give it time for your body to adapt. Perhaps 30 seconds up to about a minute. That's your static stretching and active stretching.
So the more you breathe in the middle of your stretch, the more that your muscle is going to respond and actually lengthen. So the problem with our inflexibility is that our muscles get short and tense. So what we're doing on stretching is we're making them a little bit longer, a little bit more relaxed.
That's it. So we're going to cover all this later on in their own podcast, but that's the rule of 2 and the rule of 3. So the rule of 3 here now, you've got 3 workouts at 90 minutes.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot. You might want to change that up and have 5 workouts and have them much less amount of time. I can't do the math right now.
Not quick math.
But perhaps 5 workouts at about an hour is probably going to be about the similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
Finally, we want to talk about what do we do if we're badly out of shape or we have medical conditions?
Now, before you get onto any fitness whatsoever, if you do find that you have medical conditions, that you're on a prescription, whatever you're taking, just get the GP's get the GP's nod that he's happy for you to engage in exercise. And then what happens is, for example, we can take you on, for example, and I will have that letter from the GP to say he's happy for you to exercise. That makes me happy.
Yeah, if you have got certain medical conditions, you need to have trainers who are actually qualified to be able to train you in this.
Please don't take on a personal trainer if they do not have the exercise referral.
Yeah, they should be able to have the exercise referral qualification.
Yeah.
If you have a diabetic problem, high blood pressure, cardiac issues, arthritis, serious arthritis
mental
issues.
Health. Yeah.
So
the whole spectrum, basically, yeah.
And what they will do is they will work with you, the exercise professional, to create a bespoke, personalised one-to-one program.
Yeah, and also be in touch with your GP too.
Yeah. So it's a multidisciplinary approach to get you into the best shape of your life.
Yeah.
The principles are going to be the same. We're still going to be working aerobic. We're still going to be working on strength. We're still going to be working on mobility.
Yeah.
But it's going to be done in a way which is suitable
And safe.
for your particular condition.
Yeah.
And the final thing, we're coming into a landing now because we do try to keep these to 30 minutes, is what do you do if you're an advanced trainer? If you're an advanced trainer, we go to the rule of 4.
Woohoo!
Which we're not really going to talk about today, because at that point we want to hear from you and we want to be training you personally. This is the person now who's starting to consider themselves to be, an athlete, a part-time athlete. And at that point, all the rule books, you tear them up. And there's a whole lot of different rule books.
It's a whole new world.
For you. You can't progress using the same sort of ideas you've used before, but you still have the same principles. So this is us. We've been talking about how to design an optimal fitness program, and we hope it hasn't been too complicated for you. We've just tried to give a lot of information today, which we will continue to unpack.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an overall kind of bird's eye view as to what health and fitness would be like, but bear in mind that if you are to lose 10 kilograms and get active, just bear in mind that amazing result in your body. It blows your mind.
You'll be a different person. Yes. So this is Tojo Fitness. We're ever so glad you were able to join us today. Whatever you're doing, have a fantastic day. Live life with strength and be good to your neighbour.
Yeah, have a fantastic day, people. Bye.